When we first started riding, we thought a wheelie was just a wheelie, and a trick was just a trick.
Then as we progressed, we learned that a wheelie was more than just a wheelie, and a trick was more than just a trick.
Upon mastering the sport, we now know a wheelie is just a wheelie.
And a trick is just a trick.
Hi, I'm Matt Gorka.
He is, and I'm Kyle Woods.
Listen, we'd like to thank you for joining us in our first of our video series titled Wheelies. We're going to go through in extensive detail and break it down start to finish on how we wheelie, from tire pressures to body manipulation to throttle adjustment, balance point, everything that we know about wheelies.
This is not an instructional video. We're not making it to show you guys how to do it, but the truth is we've mastered this sport. We're going to show you exactly how we did that. It wasn't an easy task, but it takes a dedication, and you got to take yourself seriously. We do our riding, we come back, and we critique it, and that's how we get better. We're going to show you how to do the same.
Right, we're going to go through and comment on things we did right and things we did wrong. A lot of times we're asked when we're doing a show, how did you do that? And we don't have time to go into full detail. Well, this is exactly what that is, a great opportunity to get into extensive detail on how we wheelie. When we get started to set up our bike to prepare for wheelies, we start at the back. I want to make sure that my tire pressures are correct. 36 to 42 pounds that comes in the factory is way too much. It puts too much of a pivot point in the center of your tire. We run about 20 pounds in the back. What that does is gives us a big contact patch, allows us to track straight. We're not concerned with high speed stability or turning because we're keeping our speeds, for the most part, under 100 miles per hour. And 20 to 25 pounds is pretty good for that.
On to bigger and better things, let's talk about bigger sprockets. Alright? Sprockets, not something you need to really concern yourself with too much for this video. We got big sprockets on because that's what we run, but everything we're going to do in this video is something that can be done, and we did, and we do, with stock gears. So let's not worry about that too much. The real deal with gears is this: the bigger the gear, the slower you can go. That's on a different tape. One thing you do want to worry about is chain adjustment, okay? You don't want too much slop or too much play on your chain, because what happens is it's just like having a lot of slop or a lot of play on your throttle. It's just more that you have to make up for. Because your engine transmission's up here, it still needs to get all that to the rear wheel. And if there's a lot of slop and play, you're going to feel it in the wheelie. So tighten that up, and tighten yourself up, tighten your game up.
Secret! Alright, here's a little secret between you and me. Go down 2 in the front on your front sprocket, up 2 in the back. A lot more motor braking. That's between you and me.
Alright, here's the basic checklist necessity when it comes to doing wheelies. You want to make sure your bike's in good mechanical working order, because I mean you're only as good as your machine is. Alright, check this out. First and foremost, your grips, you don't want them to fall off. We already talked about all this. Matt likes the mechanics wire up his grips, make sure that they're not coming off, they're not going anywhere. Another thing is make sure there's not too much throttle play in here in your throttle, alright? One of the main reasons why we want to get all the play out of the throttle, it's pretty basic, but it's also very important. Throttle control, it's something we're going to get into later, but it's one of the most stressed and most important issues in wheeling, throttle control. If you have a sloppy throttle, let's say you have a lot of movement, it's like this before it's doing anything. I mean, just straight free play. Well, just imagine if you're trying to hold something steady and it's just straight free play. I mean, there's no way you're going to hold it steady if the machine can't hold it steady. You got to take the free play out of the throttle, and then the rest is up on you to have good throttle control. Talk about the throttle housing for a second. If you notice, we got a bolt through here. We got aftermarket handlebars in this. These are dirt bike freestyle bars. So what we got going on is Matt likes to drill a nut and bolt all the way through his throttle housing, right through the handlebar, to make sure it's not going to go anywhere, which is a cool deal. He's also got tape in there to make sure it doesn't rattle loose. I mean, he's got this pretty much down pat. That's the way this job's done. I want to show you this one. This is very important. Here's a situation. We just set this bike all the way up. We're not done with it yet. We put all the controls on, the throttle housing, and everything's on. Everything looks good. We got aftermarket handlebars on here too. But we didn't drill it and put the bolt in it to make sure that the throttle housing is going to work good. So take a look at this down here. We got the throttle housing over here. It's on the aftermarket handlebar. All right, it works. Everything looks good, but here's the real deal. This thing's loose. It manipulates itself up and down. The cables are loose. They're not adjusted. The throttle sticks. For what reason does the throttle need to stick? Do you have cruise control? What, are you going to go check on the wife and kids in the back of the bike? Tighten up over there. When we do our tricks, we got one finger on the clutch. We're giving it gas and we're slipping the clutch. giving it gas, slipping the clutch, and that's how we're coming up in the wheelie. It's got to be up at the very beginning of the adjustment because all we're doing is slipping it. Now let's say this was our free play and like the thing could free play all the way here and the clutch grabs right here. That's not going to work if your whole finger's here. You're not going to get any slip of the clutch. You see what I'm saying? It's pretty much basic knowledge. You want to have the clutch all the way out, just a finger, slip it is all you need. There's a reason why we do a lot of modifications to our bikes. We take the mirrors off so we don't get our feet caught up in the mirrors when we're trying to get over the windscreen or something like that. We cut down the windshield so we don't, when we're sticking our feet over the front, we don't get our feet too stuck in there. We take the windshield and we kind of like zip tie it down a little bit so your pant legs don't get caught on things like this. There's a lot of variables, a lot of things we do. You know, a lot of things we get rid of. We tie our grips on a little tighter. We try to make sure that none of the bad things that we usually have happen to us are going to happen to us again.
All right, for me, 200-pound rider, I've blown through probably 10 sets of foot pegs. I don't put my life in the hands of a cheap stock foot peg. This is a steel motocross style foot peg. It's got a very aggressive tread on it. It's twice the size and probably 3 times as strong. The possibility of this breaking is slim to none. We haven't seen it yet.
We're going to talk for a second about freestyle ingenuity cages. We've tried a bunch of cages. These seem to work out the best for us. What a cage does is a cage lets you crash as many times as you possibly can without killing your bike as much as you'd kill yourself. And what we're going to do here is we're going to show you our cage. The freestyle cage, what this does is it's an extended frame slider with a replaceable end, so you can scratch this up as much as you want and you can buy a replacement for it. Okay, now it's got a lower strut that goes around the whole bottom of your engine. It protects your clutch case, your stator cover, your oil pan, the whole 9 yards. It's pretty low profile. You're not going to hit this on the side. It's got a back strut here that connects to your subframe and the back of your frame here. This is added support that makes this thing as heavy duty as it is. We've dropped our bikes from every kind of position you could possibly imagine. We run these cages, we back them up, and that's what we recommend.
Secret, use our name. You get a 10% discount at Freestyle Ingenuity cages and scrape bars.
Let's talk about posture for a little bit. This is a 450-pound machine. I want to be in control of it. I don't want it pivoting too much underneath me like so. So I want to be up close to the tank. I want my legs holding the tank. I want my arms locked out. I want my chest up and out. And I want to be ready to control this 450-pound machine.
All right, we're going to take this opportunity, since the bike's up in the wheelie position, we're going to have Matt demonstrate like body position and posture on when the bike's coming up in the wheelie and when you're riding the wheelie.
Okay, when I'm in my wheelie, I'm close to the tank. I've seen guys ride with their butt against the back of the seat. No good. You want to be up closer to the front as possible. The best way that I can describe this is if you were to take a pool cue and turn it over and put the big end on top, all your weight at the top makes it easier for it to balance. If you were to flip it over and put the weight at the bottom, it's going to be real hard to balance, and it's much like that on a motorcycle. So you want your weight to be up front as close as possible. I'm grabbing the tank with my knees. I'm keeping my arms locked out, and my back as rigid as possible. When I pull up my wheelie, for the most part, I'm looking down the triple clamp. I'm looking to each side along the fork tubes. I want to stay as much in line with the motorcycle as possible. Sometimes I get in a situation where I need to look off to the side of the bike. I'll do that, or if I have to, in my stand-up wheelie, it's not a concern because I clear the windscreen and I can look over it like this. But once my bike's up, for the most part, I'm locked out. I'm not moving around a whole lot, and I'm not loose because I don't want my body moving without the bike moving with me.
Ready? Yeah. Within the next couple of minutes, you're going to need to run out really fast before viewing the rest of this film. You're going to need to go to the convenience store and buy 2 pounds of dry ice. You need to firmly pack all the top, front, and both sides of your DVD player because it's going to start smoking from the hot sizzling footage we just got. Some of the never-before-seen shots of the clutch, the throttle. Matt, tell them a little bit about it.
All right, we're going to use my bike, the Street Fighter, without plastic so that you have a totally unobstructed view of what's going on. We're going to pan in and get both hands action here. We're going to show you exactly what's going on over here with the clutch lever and how much throttle movement I got going on over here and how it affects the balance of the bike. We got a couple real-world scenarios. This is all in first gear, and we got a throttle chopping incident that has not so happy ending, so stay tuned.
Wah, wah, wah. This is usually the last thing that we remember seeing before we'd wake up in the hospital. Throttle chopping situation's an ugly issue you don't want to get into.
We pulled the bike back, and as it came back, we freaked out, closed the throttle, whacked it open. This is exactly what you don't want to do.
Pay attention to the wrist manipulation. Some of these we're going to do a little worse than others, for whichever one might suit your need. But keep in mind the horizon compared to his wrist. When he goes up, when he pushes his wrist up, the bike comes down. When he pushes his wrist down, the bike comes back up. So there's serious speed manipulations and movement of the bike you want to pay attention to. It doesn't get much better than this. The shoulder cam.
Okay, the bike's up in a wheelie. What we're going to do right here is show you what little bit of throttle input, how it affects the bike. Notice that I'm not just yanking a handful of throttle here. All my throttle adjustments, you can't really see them in my hand. I've got shift gloves on with the little white logo there so you can see everything going on.
Notice the bike floating when he's in his wheelie. I'm talking very minimal throttle manipulations, and the whole bike's in a floating, not only vertical but also side to side a little bit. So this is something that you need to control completely because you're on a giant unicycle at this point. The throttle manipulation before the wheelie is kind of a subconscious thing to get yourself ready for it. Almost all of us do that. You get involved in your wheelie, you keep your throttle hand stiff. Small manipulations, you can't even really see the wrist moving, but you can definitely see the bike going up and down. This is what we wanted to show you.
I'm throttling up a wheelie. It's much like riding a BMX bike, pulling a wheelie on a BMX bike. I can't rely on throttle alone. If I rely on throttle alone, it's going to take me too long for the front wheel to come up. So as I'm giving it throttle, I tug up on the bars. The way that I do that is in first gear around 35, 40 miles an hour, I'll ease off the throttle so that the front compresses, and I'll snap open the throttle and tug up on the bars at the same time. This action looks a lot like this. At 35, 40 miles an hour, I drop the throttle, the front compresses, my body comes forward just a little bit, and as I give it the throttle, I tug up on the bars. So I'm 35, 40 miles an hour, drop it, crack it open and tug. First gear, I'm not going to have to tug as hard as if I was in second and third. First gear, 30, 40 miles an hour, I drop the throttle, tug up on the bars about that much as I give it gas. Second gear, a little bit different story. I'm going to be up around probably 60, 70 miles an hour. I'm going to drop it, and I might even come down as far as this to give a real good firm pull when I get back on the gas. I'm pulling the bike up underneath me. I'm throwing my body weight back, but it's not a reckless throw. I'm throwing my body weight back. I'm 200 pounds. That's going to help transfer the weight to the back, and that's necessary in doing the wheelie. So in pulling back, I'm transferring my 200 pounds, and plus I'm pulling up whatever I'm pulling up on the front of the bike. It's just going to help it out. That way I don't have to use way too much throttle. I don't want to throttle my wheelie up because in doing that, it's going to take me too long if I just rely on the power of the bike, and plus I'll be going way too fast.
Alright, here's what I'm talking about. I bring it up to probably about 35 miles an hour, drop the throttle, tug up. Alright, I come back a little bit too far. That's where I'm relying on a little bit of my motor braking right there, but this is a good position for me right here.
The balance point's nice. You can see the wheel stop moving. You're speeding up a little bit, but not too much. It looks good right there.
Right, I'm real comfortable at this point right here.
Stand up is much the same way. I like to start in a rigid position with my legs locked out, my arms locked out. I don't want my body moving any more than it has to. Once I'm up around 30, 40 miles an hour in first gear, drop the throttle, drop down. You'll see me dropping down like this. The throttle's closed, the front end's compressed, and I hit the throttle, pull up at the same time. So in a fluid motion, it's going to look like this. 30, 40 miles an hour, drop the throttle, crack it open as I come up.
Alright, here I go. I'm going to bounce it up on my body.
Nice.
Bring it back to the position. Notice that I'm not locked out yet because the bike was leaning a little bit left. I'm going to get into position right here. Once I start steadying out, that's when I'll put myself into a locked position. There I go.
I see you working the bars a little bit when you go to balance yourself, and that seems to be working out pretty well.
Right. Alright, come right up. I'm in a position.
Good body posture.
There I go. See, notice that when I'm locked out, my body and my bike move in unison. I'm not flopping all over this thing.
It looks like you got great control of that right there.
Yeah.
That's nice. You're at the right angle. It's perfect. The wind doesn't look like it's messing with you that bad. And I see you dipping your knee a little bit for steering. It's working out. Nice. Very nice.
When we do our tricks, we got one finger on the clutch. We're giving it gas and we're slipping the clutch. Giving it gas, slipping the clutch, and that's how we're coming up in the wheelie.
All right, watch when I clutch it up. I'm just grabbing a handful of clutch, just a little bit of dip, and pull it up.
And your finger stays on the clutch the whole time, which is important for safety when you land the wheelie.
Right. When I come down, if I'm tacked out, I want to pull the clutch in so the engine braking doesn't throw me forward.
That looks good. Nice control.
All right, here I'm going to clutch it up. You see my body move just a little bit, but not as much as when I'm using throttle alone.
Yeah, you're using more engine power and clutch power to get yourself up.
Right, but I'm still moving my body just a little bit.
Let's talk a little bit about how we shift in a wheelie. Kyle uses a method using the clutch. That's a method that we recommend using. A lot of guys do it without using the clutch. It's just a lot of wear and tear on the transmission. Kyle, explain to everybody exactly how you do it.
Basically, I like to use the clutch just like I'm regular shifting, cruising down the street. It's a lot easier on your tranny, like Matt said. I'm going to cruise in my wheelie. I'm doing my thing. I got the balance point going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit more gas, kind of bring it past the balance point. I'm going to pull the clutch in, let off the gas, and shift up into gear, let out, and I'm back in my wheelie. The thing is, it took a long time for me to get really good at that, because what happens is it's hard to tell how fast and how much gas you need to give it for the different gear, because everything's different now. So this practice makes perfect on that one, but pull your clutch in, relax, be easier on the transmission, and I shift just like I would be on the street. We're about to show you some really cool shots. You're going to see how the geometry is on my bike. I'm up here, I'm at the balance point, and then I go to shift, where I bring it back a little too far, but I don't push the issue and try to flip and kill myself. You're going to see exactly where I have to keep it, how much gas I got to give it, and you're going to see the manipulation of the bike going up and down. You're going to see it affected by speed, the wind, the whole 9 yards. You'll notice the balance point kind of lowers a little bit at a higher speed as we get up towards more like 80 or something like that. So pay attention to this. You'll learn a lot from this one.
The only reason why you slip the clutch is just to give a little load off the engine. You want to be able to have it shift as fast as possible, so that helps.
Plus it's smoother than just banging into a gear without the clutch.
Banging is something you do at the privacy of your own home, not in front of others with your transmission.
All right, here's a good example of a real-world scenario. Clutch this thing up in second gear, and it wasn't engaged in second gear all that well. So I bring it up a little high. Watch what happens here.
Looks good so far.
Slips out of gear. Boom.
False neutral.
False
See,
neutral.
that could have been bad, because if it catches back into gear, that can throw you over the bars.
Right, so first thing I want to do in that case is pull the clutch in, because I don't know if it's going to pop back into gear. Hurt my wrist on that one.
That's what it looks like.
Next up, Kyle's going to demonstrate on how we steer our wheelies. We can do them sitting down and standing up. Any type of wheelie that we do, we're able to steer. And in a sit-down wheelie, Kyle is going to explain exactly how he steers it.
Basically, if I'm coming up and say I want to make a left, I'll be in a wheelie, cruising, say I'm in second gear, maybe, 75 miles an hour, something like that, 50 to 75. I'm cruising, I lean off to one side, and I kind of stick my leg out just to get a little bit more lean. The farther you lean, the more weight it puts on the outside of the tire, and it'll kind of drag itself. The thing is, though, it doesn't happen right off the bat. It's something that kind of takes a little while. It's kind of gradual. You know what I mean? You lean, it doesn't go right off the bat. It just kind of cruises into it. So you got to set up for your turn.
Right. Turning the handlebars will have absolutely no effect on steering our wheelies.
None whatsoever. There's rumors about that, but that does nothing. You can do this all you want. It ain't going to do anything. Unless you got the front wheel spinning real fast, say you just picked it up on the highway, you get a gyro effect maybe. Other than that, forget about it. That's a waste of time.
Let's talk about exactly how we steer them in a stand-up.
Same basic thing. In fact, stand-up's a little easier, to tell you the truth, because you can get more body weight off the bike. I like stand-ups if I'm going around serious sharp turns. Try to get the bike as upright as possible, and then I just lean off to one side or I lean off to the other. You know what I mean? The only time you might want to do a little handlebar changing is let's say I'm going to go drastic. It's easier for me to lean off with the handlebars this way than it is for them to be this way. So that's the only thing, but handlebars, they don't do nothing.
All right, pulling up a basic stand-up wheelie. The row is really cambered over there, so I'm leaning off my bike. It's taking me a second to get in a position.
But your body position is still about the same. It's just cocked over to the right a hair.
Yep, take my time, just be patient with it.
Something very important to me as a rider after I got the fundamentals of the wheelie and shifting was seeing how far I could go. Distance is at that point was the gauge of how good a rider I was. I wanted to go as far as I could, and I think Kyle will agree. There's a couple different ways to put some serious mileage on the back wheel. Sitting down is definitely one of the best methods because you don't have a whole lot of pressure on your arms, but in a stand-up position, between 3 and 5 miles is all that I could really get without getting a whole lot of arm pump. There is, however, another method, and going to the rear pegs. Kyle, why don't you explain a little bit about standing on the rear pegs and how that affects the balance?
Basically, when I got really good at riding wheelies, get past 2 or 3 miles or something, basically as long as I could do a mile, I could do 10 miles. The only thing that came into factor then was arm pump and leg pump. So if you're standing in this position, it's a lot of strain on your upper body, on your back, on your arms, a whole 9 yards. You can take strain off by climbing onto your back pegs, and now I can pretty much stand because all my weight's on the bottom. I don't really need the handlebars to do anything, but just kind of, I'm using the throttle. That's about it. So there's a lot of ways you can stand. You can do both back pegs. You could do a split, which is one back. You could do an opposite split, which is nice because you're covering the brake. You could do the in the seat. Some people do the knee in the seat. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but all those, basically what they're doing is they're just finding ways to keep your good straight, steady balance and keep the weight off your arms for distance. Here we are with Matt Gorga. We're learning about seat standers. This is one of Matt's favorite tricks. He likes to do this all the time, so let's let Matt get on this one pretty good.
There's a couple different ways that I'll get into seat stander position. I'll either stand right up on the seat, then clutch my bike up and stand right up into the position, or once again, I'll wheelie the bike up and I'll just 1 foot at a time step to the seat. That's the method that I use most often. I'll actually stand with my toes on the front seat and the middle or heel of my foot on the back seat. That gives me a lot more control. In this position, the bike is, for the most part, balanced underneath me. I like to lock my legs out so I don't have a whole lot of body movement. I've seen guys do this a whole lot, and it's just a whole lot going on. I don't recommend that method. I like a locked out method. Once I'm in this position, all I need to worry about is my throttle control. In the event that the bike comes up too high, I can shut the throttle and push the bike down like this, almost like bench pressing the bike back onto the ground. It saved me quite a few times. When my legs are in this position, it's just more time it takes to have to lock them out before I can react.
Yeah, but let's talk about worst case scenario. Let's say you're minding your own business, you're in a seat stander, everything's cool. Let's say you hit a manhole cover. What do? How does this work out? You know what I'm saying? The bike gets really wobbly because now you're talking about your weight's more towards the back. I mean, what do?
Right, sometimes the bike does get wobbly, but in this position I got a lot of control of the bike and I'm using my feet a lot. I actually steer the bike with my feet. You can see the bike will move back and forth much like this, and I can use my hands at the same time. So if I do get in a situation where I hit a manhole cover or a bump or something like that, it doesn't upset the bike too much. And if it does, I got a lot of control up here. I can actually steer as good in a seat stander wheelie as any other wheelie if I was sitting down in the seat or just doing a stand-up.
That works. That's pretty legit. Now, like when I used to steer when I steer seat standers, sometimes I over-exaggerate it and I lean off pretty hard to one side. Right. I know, I feel like I'm going to fall off sometimes. What do you think?
Well, now that we have such steep gearing, we can go slow. You can actually go around a racetrack sitting on the seat or standing on the seat like this. And I've been known to lean off the side of my bike like this in a seat stander just to get it turning. But such extreme cases aren't necessary when you're up going a little bit faster. But you got a lot of control up here.
Pay attention to how I drop my body weight behind the tank when I'm ready to land. In case of a problem or worst case scenario situation, that's what holds me on the bike. I can hug the tank with my legs.
All right, a couple tricks. The can, the knack wheelie requires some body manipulation in order to get yourself into position. They're both tricks where you're off the side of your bike. So in the event that you get into a situation where we run out of throttle, we run out of room, whatever, and we have to put our bike down, there's definitely some secrets and tips in doing this trick. Kyle, why don't you explain some of them?
Basically, here's the deal. Say we're doing a can, all right? Got to come up. Can, you got to pass your leg in between your body and the tank. The biggest problem with that is getting it through. All right? Situation is this. You got to lean back in your stand-up. All right? So you got to have great throttle control because now there's a lot of weight on your body. You got to take a leg off and stick it through. Bring it back. You're good. Problem is, let's say you're doing this. You're minding your own business. A lot of times I'll run out of RPM. Gets a little crazy. Maybe there's a pothole. Well, I got to let off on the throttle, drop the body weight back behind the tank, pull the clutch in, and I'm good.
Right. What happens if you put the bike down and you're still in the can-can position and you don't get off?
Dude, that gets ugly. Let's say you're out here minding your own business. Let's say a fox runs across the road, something crazy like that. All right? If you set it down, you don't get like this, the engine brake's going to pull you over the front, and that's going to be it for you. You're done. Right. That's definitely something to consider when you're both doing the can-can and the knack-knack wheelies. Double can-can's a really cool trick once we start linking our tricks together to do combos. There's a couple ways that you can do it. You can come over here and pass your right leg through. But right here I'm in a position to sit on my seat. I'll just sit on my seat. I'll run my body center line with my wheels, and I'm right out here. And then once again, when I bring my foot down, I want to be very conscious to not click it down into a different gear. I might be doing this in second gear. I prefer to do every trick in first gear so that I eliminate this possibility of pressing it down into neutral. So from here, I'll actually come down, I'll feel where my peg is, and then I'll lean back and pass my foot through and get back to the other peg. There's also another method of doing this. Once I'm in my stand-up position, this is actually a lot easier to do. And when I sit under the tank, I'll actually sit more on my hip than my butt, actually. So in a position like this, I'll pass the foot through in a can-can position and just sit on the tank. Once I'm on the tank, I'll pass the other foot up, and once again, to get down into position, either to go back to my seat or to my peg. Doing my own thing, minding my own business again. I go for the stand-up. I lean back. I go for the can-can. Drop to the tank. And now I go for the strangle.
Okay, right. This is the position that we need to be most concerned with. Right here, once we get into this part of the wheelie, this is okay. But coming back is where we need to show all of our caution. We want to make sure that we clear this clutch lever and clear the control. Show us how we get back from here.
So coming back, basically, I'm going to unwrap the strangle. I'm going to try to find a back peg or something with one of my foots, maybe a front, maybe a back, whatever you find. I'm going to kind of drop down a little on the tank, and I'm going to set my wheelie down like this. It's going to take a little while it took a little while for me to learn how to come all the way back, and that's nothing but 100% confidence in your wheelie and your pegs.
Cal, let's give an explanation on how you position your body for a knack-knack wheelie.
Knack-knack's a little easier. Basically, it's the stand-up, and I'm swinging my weight off the back. What I want to do is I want to lean off the other side a little bit because I'm taking my right leg and I'm swinging it behind me. So I want to lean over the bike the opposite way because you got to balance out. If you put more weight this way, you got to balance it out over here. So that's the deal. What I want to do is I want to lean off the other side a little bit because I'm taking my right leg and I'm swinging it behind me. So I want to lean over the bike the opposite way because you got to balance out. If you put more weight this way, you got to balance it out over here.
I'm about to take everybody to tank school. Let me show you the proper way to dent your tank in, all right? The proper tools you need is a dead blow hammer. I don't know if you can hear this thing, but basically it's a rubber hammer or a plastic hammer, and it's got like sand in it, something like that. You can use a rubber, that works all right. The dead blow is the best thing to do. It gets a good solid hit. You don't want to use a regular metal hammer because that thing's just going to dent the hell out of your tank. The idea is to get a smooth dent. A lot of people jump on it and stand on it when they're not going to get an accurate dent that way. The reason why we dent our tanks is to hold us in when we're doing tank wheelies or sitting over the handlebar stuff. You got to get that roundness off the top of your tank so you don't flip off. You want to build a little bit of concave in the sides. You want to build a little backrest and a little flat valley, depending on what tricks you're into. If you're into more acrobatic tricks, it's all about having a flat tank. If you're into just tank wheelies and you want to, you use a lot of highway use, then you're going to want, just a lip in the front a lip in the very back, and then you're going to want more tank in the front to hold more gas. So there's a lot of different combinations you can use. I'll show you mine. I'll show you Matt Gorka style, and then we'll show you some mishaps that happened from some, I don't know who did this, but it was a bad deal. This is the tank I like to use. Let me talk to you a little bit about this. All right, this tank has been smashed in perfectly. We got a good flat valley right here. Okay, this is good for like putting my foot if I want to do some kind of a surfing or something like this. We got nice concave that's going to hold me in if I'm going to do spinderellas or something. Okay, we also have a serious backrest. I even put a little bit of grip tape right back here to hold me in. So the backrest is like my best friend. It's what keeps me from flipping off. Got a nice dish in the back, nice concave, and a flat area to do all my spinning tricks. This is perfect. All right, next up we got this tank. This tank was dented in the wrong way. All right, it was started out the wrong way. Basically what we got is this. We got a guy who started out working too much of the back. Okay, he worked the back too much, and he stayed in one angle, one area too much with a rubber hammer, it looks like, and he started creasing the back. So then he went to fix it, and it made the crease even worse. Then it looks like he moved on over here to this side. Okay, now this already had some side tank damage. When a tank is damaged on the sides or any side, if it has a crease in it, leave it alone. It's useless. You can't mess with it anymore. This whole side is useless. Later I'm going to show you how to do this properly using this side, because this is pretty much close to stock. But once the tank gets a crease in it, you're done. You messed up. This tank right here, this went way overboard. This thing went out of control overboard. The dish is great. I mean, this thing, you could do a million spinderellas and this you'd never fall off. It's got a dish in the front, which is rare. It's got a dish, serious concave all the way around the side. I mean, this is like, it doesn't get any more smashed in than this. Dude obviously started from the back, worked his way to the outsides, pushing out, pushing out, pushing out. Everything was good, except what happens is it was so much stress in the top of the tank that the stress builds up inside the tank, because the metal can only take so much stress. So what happens here is the metal must have built up a stress right in here. Maybe there was a small dent on this side, I don't know, and it just started folding in. So all the stress from all around the sides caved in and folded in on this side, so now you're stuck with this. Again, useless tank. I mean, it was way dented to start with. You'd have no gas in this thing. You'd probably get 3 wheelies and that'd be it. But you could spin around for the rest of your life and never fall off. Let me explain to you about Matt's tank. This one's done perfectly for Matt's style, okay? Matt likes to have a slight overall concave. He doesn't really like to have a flat area. He likes to have a slight overall concave. It's almost like a skateboard for him up here at the top. He likes to have a little bit of a backrest here, but not too much. He doesn't want to go too serious. He likes to hold a lot of gas. He likes to be very practical with his tank, and this seems to work out best for him. This is more the Kyle Woods version. This is the mild Kyle Woods version right here. This is the street bike. This is something I could still ride on the street, but it's also very stunt worthy. It's got more of a flat area right here, and then more aggressive concave here on the sides. It forms more of a dish, and it has a very steep, if you can see this, it's got a very steep backrest right here. This is something that holds me in, because I like to rely a lot on my backrest and see how things are done. So I got a flat area up here. I can stand, put my feet, do whatever. This is a fabric tank, so I can't do any spinderellas, but it's got everything I need in a stunt tank and more. This thing's been killed. It's been dented to hell and back on this side. This side's totally unsavable. This side's got a serious crease in the back. I don't think so. We're gonna give it a whack and see if we can fix that a little bit. Maybe we can mold this side. But at least I'm gonna show you how it works over here. The proper denting though, okay, let's say this is a perfect world. Proper denting is I would start on the rim of the gas cap. I would start on the rim, nice and gently, and I would work my way around, and then I would start working out with the hammer. I mean, hitting it, out, hitting it, out. And basically, I'm going to kind of do the same thing, see if I can come up with some type of a dish. Now, if you notice, I'm starting to make a little bit of a dish, which is cool, because now I got the stock lip right in here, a little bit down, and I'm going to start working it out this way, and I'm going to start working it out this way. I might leave this side a little crazy. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. We're going to play with it. It's like a Picasso. Okay, here's where we're at. Basically, we went to dent this thing the right way. Here's how it goes. We smoothed it out around the back. You seen that? We come down around the front. We start flattening this panel out. We did this whole side a little bit. One thing you want to watch out for is if there's any small dents or if anybody did any body work in it, you'll start to get a crease where there was a dent. So there must have been a dent over here on this side. Paint peeling? Yeah, it happens. Something you need to redo is repaint. So we got a little bit of an area over here. We got a good little flat area. Got a little more concave on this side. And you can start to see how we're building the edge here in the back by working it out. There's no saving this crease. There's no saving this over here. Obviously this side's shot, but at least you get a good idea on how we get this done. Nice and smooth, nice and easy, and just work it out.
One of the best tricks out there, actually it is my favorite trick, is the tank wheelie. And there's a couple ways to get to that position. You can either start with the bike on the ground, clutch it up, or you can jump to position, or you can jump from the seat. Kyle does all three, and he does them very well. Kyle, I want you to explain to everybody how we do that.
Basically, you've already seen how to do the tank wheelie from starting. You're in the position like this when you come up. Okay, let me explain this to you a little different. Let's say you're sitting down. You're in your tank position. Roar, you clutch it up. Okay, you're still in the coming up stage. As you're coming up, you're leaning back more and you're extending your feet. That's how that works out. You don't really want to sit there like this on the ground and come up. You kind of like everything happens all at once type of situation.
When jumping to the tank, there's something that's very important to consider for us, is where our left foot is in relation to the shift lever. I don't want to be resting my foot on the shift lever, because if I'm in second gear and I'm doing this trick, I don't want to push it down into neutral at first gear when I jump to the tank. Kyle, why don't you show exactly how you jump to the tank?
Well, there's a couple ways to jump tank. You can do it from the front pegs, which is basically almost into a stand-up wheelie, and like this. The only problem with this is it's kind of an abrupt jump. So like there's a lot of chance of throttle chopping going on when you're sitting here, and you're kind of in a vulnerable position. What happens is, I've seen guys do this, they'll be like this, and when they go to make the jump, they let off from the throttle, and then the bike comes down a lot, so then they got to gas way back into it. It's an ugly looking thing. It's almost like you have to overcompensate for something like that.
Right. One thing that I do is, as the bike's coming up in the wheelie, immediately after I clutch it up, as it's coming up to the balance point, I'll jump right into the tank position. What that enables me to do is ride the wheelie out a little bit longer, because the longer I wait to jump to the tank, like Kyle said, there's a better chance that I might overcompensate by dropping the throttle, trying to save myself a little bit, and I might not have the gear that's going to pull me back up into that position. So I want to do it as soon as possible.
Another way I personally like to get up to the tank is I go from a seat stander to the tank wheel. That's my personal favorite. So I'll be riding the stand up. I do the seat stander like this, and then I jump from the seat stander into the tank wheelie.
Right.
That's my personal favorite. The only problem with that is that's more of a harsh jump, because you're going from the seat onto the tank.
Right.
So you have a tendency, like I always have a tendency to knock the bike down. So actually what I do, believe it or not, it sounds crazy, when I'm in my seat stander position, I'm doing a good seat stander, I actually gas it enough to where if I was going to stand here, I'd just loop the whole thing. As I jump, I gas it even more, because when I meet my bike and hit it, I'm pushing it down. So I kind of bring the bike up to me as I hit the bike, and I even everything out.
Right. Once Kyle jumps from the rear seat, he doesn't grab a whole handful of throttle. He has to compensate for the fact that he's got 200 pounds jumping now onto the tank of the bike. It's just moving the weight differently on the bike, so he's got to compensate with a little bit more throttle.
The key to having a good-looking tank wheelie is the spread. To get the good spread, you want to sit close to the tank as possible. Shift your body weight if you have to. Get ready to spread. Hold your legs close and spread them as you're coming up. Confidence is the key in this. You can use a little bit of engine brake if you want to get a good wheelie. But as you're coming down, you want to hug the bike with your legs to gain control, pull your clutch in, and brace yourself. Me and Matt like to manipulate a lot of engine brake in our tank wheelies, high chairs, stuff like that. We're trying not to get into that too much right here. It is possible with stock sprockets, except we'd have to be up around 100, maybe 110 miles an hour. And our chase car couldn't keep up with that, so we had to go with the bigger gearing for this one. All right, one thing to remember is, like we talked about earlier, Matt was explaining to you the survival reactions, all right? Let's say we're over here. We're minding our own business. We're in a tank wheelie. Some survival reactions take over for some reason. I don't know, maybe a friend of yours is turning in front of you, something. I don't know what it is. So you chop the throttle. Well, guess what? You chop the throttle, you still got all the engine brake to deal with. Number one, the front wheel slams down on the ground and wants to throw you over. You might be in a weird position like this, but you might recover, okay? So you're in a weird position. Well, now you got the engine brake to deal with, and that's just going to throw you, and you're doing one of these numbers, right? And this is what it looks like a second before you check out, and that's the last thing you're going to ever remember. So the main thing you want to do is this. Let's replay that scenario on a winning situation. You'll be in your tank wheelie, your buddy pulls a U-turn in front of you. You chop it, you close the throttle for a second, get back on it. The second the front tire hits, pull the clutch in and just kind of hug the bike with your feet. And then you're cool, full control, you got the clutch in, bike's in neutral. You slow it down and you get in a fist fight with your buddy.
right, let's talk about the body positioning of a heel clicker.
If you look, the way I'm positioned on the tank is further back, and it's also twisted more towards my lower back instead of the bottom of my butt like a lot of people sit.
Yeah.
Secret. Heel clickers is all where you sit. Sit back here up on the top of your tailbone, and your friends are going to be wondering, how does he make those wonderful wheelies?
All right, next up we're going to show you exactly how we get over the bars to get into high chair position. We're going to show you the order that we get over, the order that we get back, the speeds that we get over, and another thing, how to avoid the control so we don't hit them with our pant legs. So pay attention.
All right, here's a good example on how we do it. I'm going to smoothly jump up onto the tank. I'm going to put my left foot over first, and then my right foot. Nice and smooth, one at a time.
Making sure that we clear the bars with our legs.
That's a little faster, more real-time how we get that done. It's nice and easy.
This next one's in slow motion.
It's a smooth jump over the tank. I grab the bars. I'm ready to do my wheelie.
All right, this is what happens a lot of times. We get cocky and don't pay attention to what we're doing.
Always spread your legs on the way back, because if you hang up on the handlebar, that could be it. Now pay attention. I hit my hand, I hit the handlebar, and if you notice, I almost fell off the side right there. It was that quick. We'll replay it again for you.
We always make sure that we want to approach our tricks not with cockiness, but with confidence. When we get cocky, we overlook some of the most important steps.
All right, Kyle's in high chair position. A good high chair position is when your feet are over your head. The reason being is because the higher up the bike is, the easier it is to steer.
Basically, when I watch myself on video and I take a look and I see my feet are just a little bit of, they're either even with or a little above my head. Situation is this. That's how I teach myself how to steer. I either look through the center of my feet, or if I want to go left, I look off to the left. Want to go right, I look off to the right. And that's the beginning of it. Next thing you know, you get a little more cocky, you start leaning off one side or the other, but that's definitely something a little bit harder to do.
Right. This is a good example of why we dent our tanks in. It gets a good seat position for us. Kyle, explain to everybody what you do coming down from a tank wheelie to be safe and what to avoid.
Most important thing to avoid falling right over the windshield is, let's say you're doing your tank wheelie, let's say you're at the balance point, everything's cool. All right, I'm cruising, minding my own business. Well, I want to come down from my tank wheelie. I kind of close the throttle a little bit, not a full close, but I let off the throttle a little bit, and then I get right back onto where I was. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to set the bike down, and I'm accelerating back into it so it sets the front wheel down nice and smooth. The only thing is, to make sure I don't run out of RPM or I don't throw myself off the ground, throw myself off the bike, the second I land, I pull the clutch in, and life is good. Okay, now we're going to show you real time on how I get over the bars, I grab the controls, and I'm going to show you how I get back, nice and smooth. Now let's incorporate that with the actual wheelie itself. Again, doing the high chair, you never want to forget about the wheelie. Don't concentrate so much on doing the high chair, concentrate more on the actual wheelie itself. It still maintains the correct balance point, pulling the clutch when you land, and you're safe.
There you go. Anytime that we come down from a trick, that we're sitting over the front, we're sitting on the tank, and we don't have good position to brace ourselves in case of a fall, we want to make sure that we pull our clutch in the second that we hit the ground and only engage it when we're at a safe and comfortable speed.
The high chair is very dangerous because you have no choice to bail out. You can't bail out. There is no falling off. When you land, it's easy to fall forward, and it's also easy to fall backwards if you go a little too high. That's why a lot of people are afraid of the high chair. It took me a long time to get over that fear, but it now became one of my favorites.
Initiating this trick is just like a tank wheelie or a crossed over wheelie. There's no secrets here. He's got his feet against the fairing and his other foot against the tank as he's clutching this up. As he's coming up, he extends his legs the same way he would be doing in a tank wheelie.
When you're coming down, you want to let off the gas a little bit, get right back on it, so it's coming back down. Hug the bike, second the front tire hits, grab the clutch, and you're safe. Stunt life. So let's talk about doing one-handed, taking one hand off.
Yeah, this was very hard for me to overcome because it's a lot of mind over matter. In this situation, it's easiest to do this under power because grabbing the bike with my legs and holding myself up with my throttle hand is just not practical. I don't want to put that much stress on my throttle hand. So I usually do this under power. And this would be in second gear for the most part. Once I clutch my bike and it was coming up, I keep it at a relatively low height and I'd be powering on it. And as soon as I got to a position where I could hug the tank a little bit, I'd take my hand off.
So basically, Matt, you got to be in the balance point because you can't really be relying on your hands to hold you up, right? You got to be cool. You got to be back on the seat. You got to be balanced.
Right. This is a situation that there's a couple ways to do it. I can either sit up close like this and put a lot of strain on my legs, or I can actually sit back in the seat and use the back seat to give me a little bit of balance. But when I do that and I sit on the back seat, it puts my weight a little bit further back, and the balance point is going to be a little bit different. So I still want to be in close to the tank like this. But it's a lot of mind over matter just taking that hand off the grip. It's something that's kind of difficult to overcome, but once you're up and you're under power, it's easy to take the hand off. Once we're comfortable taking our hands off and we're comfortable in doing stand-up wheelies, the next route is a really cool trick called the fender grab. Once again, I'll start right here in my, would you stop that please? Sorry. I'll start here in my stand-up position, and I'll actually take my left foot and place it against my back seat. Once I'm up into a position where I'm under power, this is something that I'm not really doing at the balance point. I don't want the bike pivoting underneath me too much. I'll do it while I'm under power, kind of like a power wheelie almost. And this is usually done for me in second gear. I'm going kind of fast doing this. So once I get to a position where I've got all my weight on my left foot, I can take my hand off the grip and reach over the front to grab the fender. The majority of my weight's going to be over the front. That's why I want to be doing this trick kind of fast, because that's where I'm most comfortable.
You got to have the utmost throttle control when you're climbing about the bike with only one hand holding on. If Matt in this case was to chop the throttle just a little bit, that'd be end of him. He couldn't hold on to nothing. And he knows it. He's proud. Louis is the right foot off the left peg and the other foot out. All right. Here's how I do it. I clutch my wheelie up. I'm doing good. All right. I go into the stand up. I go into the split wheelie. Okay. I go into the one-sided wheelie because I made the crossover. Now I put my weight on the other foot and I stick it up here like this. I usually like the first gear, like Matt says, also because now just imagine me in this position right here off the side of the bike, and I hit it down into first from second. Oh my God. I've seen that done. I've also seen peg brackets snap off and bolts break loose, and none of it kind of came out to a good scenario. So it's a very dangerous trick. I like to be careful when I do it and make sure my machine's running good.
I take the whole world and I bear it on my shoulders. You give and you give, you give and you give. I take the whole world and I bear it on my shoulders. You give and you give and you give and you give and you give. I take the whole world and I bear it on my shoulders. You give and you give and you give and you give and you give. Unstoppable, tragic now, I'm able to
All right, basically here we are in your living room, and we're here to tell you about how we learned about throttle control, the balance point, and most importantly is engine braking. The balance point is like some people thinking the world is flat, you know what I mean? You don't really know if it's flat or round until you go to chase it. And they feel like they're going to find the balance point and they're going to lose it. The one thing they got in their corner is engine brake. Tell us about engine brake.
Right. Engine braking, the best way I could explain it is, let's say I have a car, it's a 5-speed manual transmission. First gear, I put it in first gear and I leave it there and I tack the car out. I'm going as fast as I can. If I take my foot off the gas, it brings me forward. It pulls me forward quite abruptly. Second gear, it's going to do the same thing. But the higher I go up in the gears, the faster I'm going, and I don't have as much engine braking. Let's say, for example, I'm in 5th gear overdrive on the highway. I'm doing 90 miles an hour. Even though I'm accelerating, I might take my foot off the gas, but it's not going to throw me forward in my seat. I don't have a whole lot of engine braking. So first and second gear, we're going to experience the most of our engine braking, and that's where we're going to do the most of our tricks.
I was just trying that while you were saying that, and bro, you're right.
It's working.
You're right. I almost
Oh.
flew through my windshield on that one. I mean, it was serious. Let's talk about the balance point. That's probably the hardest to find. Basically, what I would do is I just did wheelie after wheelie after wheelie, and I learned the higher I would get my wheel up, the closer I was to the balance point. Well, the closer I was to the balance point, the longer I would go without acceleration. And eventually, when I found the balance point, it was like, dude, you could go forever. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can go 30 miles till you run out of gas, whatever. First gear, it makes no difference. So the balance point's hard to find. It's basically like, a lot of people think that you get to the balance point and you're just going to flip. Like, they think that there's a light switch, a balance point, and then, I'm dying, you know? But basically, it's like this. You won't really know what it's like until you get there. And it's actually manageable, it's dealable, it's nice, it's a cool feeling because you're in your wheelie and you feel this weird acceleration, and then it's kind of like it's neutral.
Right. Once
acceleration.
you're accelerating your wheelie, a lot of the pressure is put in the palms of your hands to hold your bike. And once you get closer to the balance point, it's almost like it puts the pressure on your
body,
butt, and it
right.
takes a lot of pressure off your wrist. That's when you know you're getting close to the balance point. That's what I tell people.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's definitely true. And the thing is, the closer you are to the balance point, the longer I would always ride my wheelies every time. You know what I'm saying? The higher I would get the front wheel, the closer I was, I would ride my wheelies longer and longer and longer. And the next thing you know, I'm at the balance point. And the key is, I was trying to stay at the balance point, and I would try not to move my throttle hand at all because you don't want to pull yourself out. And I'm up there doing my own thing, minding my own business, dude. I'd go forever.
Right. Check this out. If I was to explain the balance point like leaning back in a chair, I wouldn't tell you to just go pushing off like you're doing a back handspring and hoping for the best, unless I wanted to, unless I try to play
my skull open on the concrete.
Right. Well, it does happen, and it happens in wheelies too. We've done it. I've done it. I know you've done it. But just like leaning back in a chair, I want to bring myself back smooth. I'm going to use my feet as an example of the throttle. Pushing myself back is going to be like rolling on the throttle. Well, anytime I bring my weight forward, it's going to be like engine braking. If I give myself too much throttle, I might not have enough motor braking to pull myself back forward. So I want to be smooth on it. I want to bring myself back. I'm in no hurry. I'm going to bring myself back till my body gets light here. And once it gets to a point where I can pick my feet up, I'm at the balance point right here. Well, notice that I'm not going to make a whole lot of movement with my body. I'm not doing this. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You wouldn't do it in your chair. Why do it on the bike? So here I am.
That's true. That's true.
I'm relaxed. I'm not doing anything, but majority of my weight's focused a little bit forward because if I fall back, I don't really have a whole lot to bring me back to position. But I do have throttle to bring me back to the balance point. So I'm smooth on the throttle till I get back to the balance point. Once I'm here, I'm staying pretty consistent on the throttle. I'm not doing a whole lot of changes here in the right hand.
All right, so talk me through this, Matt. So I'm in my wheelie. I'm in my balance point, right? Oh, let me move up. Ready? How about this? So all right, I'm in my balance point. All right, I'm doing my thing. All right. Say I get a little bit too much. Say I'm going back too far.
Okay.
Now what do I got to do? I got to close my throttle, right?
Close the throttle.
And I get the engine brake to bring me back.
Right.
Right.
But you see how much it brought you back?
Right.
It brought you back too far.
So when I'm back,
Close it.
and then you got to ease back on.
Yeah, you ease it in to get yourself in a position. You're not throwing your body back and forth here. What happens when you come forward, you want to give yourself just enough throttle to bring you back into position.
So it's like gas, off, like that, right? And
Right.
it just kind of eases on. You want it nice smooth movements. I see what you're saying about being jerky. Like I wouldn't be balancing here and just like expect to be jerky. Like everything, if I want to balance forward or backwards, everything's got to be smooth.
Right.
And it's the same kind of thing on a bike. That's a good theory there. Yeah. So basically, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a cool concept that no one really showed me before. It's Basically, I'm going up, I'm on my gas, I'm on my throttle, and then I do my engine brake. It brings me down. I'm gassing, I'm nice and smooth, I get to my point, I'm at the balance point, I'm finding it, I go too far, engine brake.
But notice the movement that he has there. If he's really abrupt, he's going to bring himself down forward, and he's going to actually have to use a lot more force to bring him back to the balance point. If he brings himself back slowly to where he can find the balance point, the throttle input is very minimal, and it'll keep him really smooth. So let's show him how smooth you can keep this.
Survival reactions is something a lot of people don't really think about, and it's something that people should know about, because what we do and what a lot of racers do, we have to defy survival reactions. Survival reactions, you explain it best, but basically it's doing exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. Your body goes, what you're doing now is no good, stop, and you try to stop it.
For example, I've read racing books, and they say that if you get in a position where you're coming around a second gear turn and you're whacked open on the throttle and the back end starts to spin, the last thing that you want to do is shut the throttle off, because that's just going to upset the bike and put you into a high side. But that is the first thing that your brain tells you to do, when in reality it's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. I mean, you just close the throttle a little bit and stay smooth. Whacking it upsets the geometry of the bike way too much, and it does the same thing in a wheelie. When we bring our bike back and we get into a position where we're panicking, a survival reaction tells us to chop the throttle. Well, greed wants us to keep the wheelie up. So what's the first thing that we do after we chop the throttle? We whack the throttle open again. That's the last thing that we should be doing right here. One important aspect of this sport to understand is there's always another wheelie, there's always another stop, there's always another opportunity. There's absolutely no need to try to squeeze the most out of your wheelie unless it's the last one that you're ever able to do.
One thing you got to remember, and Matt always reminds me about this, Matt has a wakeboarding background, and basically he tells me, if motorcycle stunt riding was like wakeboarding, the tricks we'd be doing right now would be insane. Thing is, you can always go 100% in wakeboarding, you know what I mean? You can always just go for it, and if you fall, you're falling in water. It hurts, I mean, don't get me wrong, it hurts, but you're falling in water. And like you say, I mean, you don't want to fall in concrete. You got to learn slower and slower, step by step.
Our sport right now is pretty much the only sport where failure is not an option. Failure can sometimes result in death or hospitalization. I don't want that. I know you don't want that. I've crashed my bike several times. I don't like to see people crash their bikes. It's the worst thing to overcome, flipping your bike and coming back. It's very hard to do. So to eliminate that, if I was to start over again, I would tell myself that throttle control is the most important thing that I need to understand. I don't need to be overzealous with the throttle here. I'm not looking to get an arm pump when I ride my bike. I'm staying consistently smooth on the throttle. That's what's going to keep me tracking straight. If I bring my bike back, I notice that it's always smooth when I'm bringing it back. It's when I chop the throttle and come off, when I get in a situation where a survival reaction kicks in and I chop the throttle, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm fine, and then whack the throttle open again, and then I get back to that point because I used too much throttle. I'm not being smooth, and that just translates to the bike being weavy all over the place. So that's the main objective of throttle control, is just to be able to maintain a smooth wheelie.
My biggest problem growing up was throttle control, always. I mean,
like when you were a kid?
some people it's wetting their pants, other people it's sleepwalking. Me, it was throttle control. I mean, I had the biggest problem with it. We all know, okay? Now, I know there's some of these people are out there in your family. May it be your dad, your mom, friends of yours. You ever drove a car with somebody and you're chilling and you're in the passenger seat and the dude speeds up and slows down? It speeds up and slows down for no apparent reason.
You think he's messing with you, but he's looking out the window like it's no big deal.
Like it's just like that's the way it is. That is the classic throttle chopper syndrome. Now pay attention, that's the worst kind of syndrome to have. That's right up there with a lot of other main diseases. It's called throttle choppers.
TCs.
There's one way to correct that.
TC's disease.
You have to teach the people that the throttle is not a light switch. It's not on off, on off, on off. It's more of a dimmer switch. You can give it a little more light, a little less light, a little more light. Whatever you feel your mood is, it's a dimmer switch. Just relax. It's like the dude, it's like he's got this problem, right? It's like you meet him and he's just, hi, you go to shake his hand and he's like this all the time. I mean, what's the problem, dude? It doesn't have to be on or off. Relax!
Throttle control is something that is consistent throughout your whole life. It either exists or it doesn't exist. Driving, are you going to be that guy who hits the throttle, you're off the throttle, on the throttle, off the throttle? We've all ridden with that guy. And I sure wouldn't drink like that. So why would I ride my motorcycle like that?
serious issue. A lot of people are embarrassed of that. It's the throttle control issue. It comes out with a lot of people and a lot of things. See, the main ways you see it is on the highway with the people in the cars and the foot, you know, that kind of thing, or doing wheelies and they're throttle chopping it the whole time. Well, obviously in Matt's case, you've seen it kind of extends on a little bit further than the highway or the drag strip. I mean, it's actually involved with drinking and things like this, you know, or other people. The strobe light was invented because someone had a throttle chopping problem on a light switch. So once you work these problems in, you figure out things and how they go. I mean, just smooth things out, ease them out, and once you learn to be smooth and be easy, I think you can kind of work that with the rest of your life all in general. So, you know, let's see what happens. Let's work on that a little bit, and I think you'll pull through.